Hey y'all, it's Crystal here. We are going to sew together our blanket squares using the whip stitch, and we're doing it on the right side for a decorative join. So there are a couple things you want to do first to make sure your squares are ready. One, make your squares. Two, make sure you follow around the outside edge of your square in the same color to make a single crochet border around in the same color. Then you're going to make a single crochet border around in white, or the color that you are using to join. For this blanket, it is Fisherman, a white color or a cream color. Okay, so your blanket squares are done. Single crochet around in the same color, then put your sewing joining color, a border in single crochet around, and then you're ready to sew. I went ahead and blocked my squares before I added the white border, so I would recommend you do that. Since they're all different stitch patterns for this blanket sample I'm using, I wanted to make sure the joining and bordering techniques were simple and it wouldn't really matter on the stitch count. So the whip stitch worked out really well for that. It's also a very easy stitch to sew. Okay, so I have 4 miniature blanket squares here that I can use to sew these up. I did not work very hard to make them all the same size, which is fine. You'll see that it doesn't matter too much. I'm going to first sew vertically and then come back and sew horizontally. When you're doing a blanket, you want to make sure you make your square layout first, maybe take a picture or write it down so you can refer back to it as you go, because I'll take these 4 away from my whole blanket and start sewing, and then I might get them mixed up or have to walk away. So make sure you have it all ready to go. Now, when I'm sewing vertically, I'm going to focus on getting the join secure at this intersection of 4. When I come back and I sew horizontally across, I will try to make this look as pretty as possible, because that will be my top layer of sewing that you will see. If you can manage one long piece of yarn to sew vertically and one long piece of yarn to sew horizontally, then do that, because the more times you break your yarn, the more susceptible it is for coming out, and so you have to make sure you weave it in really well. When we're sewing and joining, you really don't want it to come apart. So if you have to use more than one length of yarn, you'll want to make sure you can join to like halfway or past an intersection. You don't want to have to join new yarn here and when you're sewing. And but you know, if you can do one length, do that. However, most of the time it's too long on a blanket, because then you just have really long yarn to pull through and it gets tangled up and it's a mess. So I did do 2 lengths to sew mine vertically. Horizontally, you probably can manage a really long piece, but it's up to you. Going to have to join and rejoin during sewing. Just make sure that you weave those ends in, up, down, left, right, make a square, keep going. Make sure you leave a good 6-inch tail so that you have plenty of length to weave in and bury deep. Split the yarn, go into the stitches, just really make sure it's secure so your blanket does not come apart. So for the 12-inch squares that this blanket is based on, I recommend about 18 to 24-inch length of yarn, so that you have enough yarn to leave a tail and to sew, and that's per 12-inch squares. So you can do the math on that for how many squares you have. Usually with sewing, I just recommend you double the length for how much you are going to sew together. Okay, so these are the 4 that I'm going to demonstrate, so I can do vertical, horizontal, and show you that intersection. I'm going to start with my bottom 2 right squares, and I am going to lay them out side by side, right side up, and I'm going to sew on the front of my work. I have chosen a contrasting color to my white. I recommend you work in the same color unless you are highly confident in your sewing skills and you want to have a contrasting color. Okay, so we'll just thread our yarn needle. All right, so on the right corner square here from the top, I'm going to insert my needle under the 2 loops of the corner stitch. Okay, right there, exactly where we would put a crochet hook. We're going to bring the needle and the yarn through the stitch and pull the link through all the way through this first stitch until you have about your 6-inch tail. So this is what I mean about making sure the length of yarn you choose is not too long, because you're going to have to do this for every single stitch you pull through and sew together. So leave a 6-inch tail to sew it in really well. Now we're going to go across to the corresponding stitch on the other square, insert the needle under the 2 loops in that stitch, that corner stitch there. And bringing this all the way through as well. And here we just have to make sure that we don't pull our tail out here. So there we've joined our 2 squares, but it's not secure yet. So now, like with all seaming that I do, I'm going to make a locking stitch where I go back up into the same stitch that I started in. So it makes a loop, bringing them together and securing that tail a little so that it doesn't pull out. So now I can pull a little bit tighter, and you see if I pull hard enough it will pull through, but not if I just pull snugly. Okay, so now I have them joined at the bottom corner stitch. Now we'll begin the whip stitch. To do that, we are going to bring the yarn needle up and over. Up and over, so up and over. And we're going to go on the single crochet, and we're going to go under the front loops. So I'm just going to pick up my squares here and fold them in half like that so that you can see the loops and the stitches we're working into. These 2 stitches we are going to sew together. We are only working in this loop. It's the loop closest to me, so it's the front loop. We're working in this loop, which is technically the back loop on this single crochet, because facing me, it's the one furthest from me. For the purposes of this sewing tutorial, we're going to call these the inside loops, because we're going to sew joining the 2 loops that are touching together on the inside of our border here. So this loop and that loop, this loop and that loop. All right, so the whip stitch goes up and over, and that's what we're going to start with now. Okay, so my first stitch under that front loop there from the center, going across to the other stitch, corresponding, coming out of the center of that stitch. Okay, so now we just keep repeating. We bring our yarn needle up and over into the center of the stitch on the first square, across to the corresponding stitch on the second square, going under both those inside loops and pulling that through. Let me get the tail out of the way here so you can see it. And then there is your first whip stitch. See how it is like a slash? It's angled. Let me go to the next 2. Repeat all the way up to your intersection. You don't want to pull them too tightly, just snug. Okay, as we come to the end of these squares here, we will have our corner stitches to deal with again, which we just continue in the same way. Oh, I forgot to mention this little bit here. So this is my border tail, and you have a couple of choices. You can weave it in before you start joining, or you can leave it to weave in after. I chose to do it after, and that way I could use it to clean up anything at the intersection that I wasn't happy with, but you can do it before as well. Invisible stitch looks really good on these joins on things that are in the round where you see the outside border, so I'd recommend using that. Okay, so when I get to the top and I'm ready to join my next 2 squares, I just bring those over here, and we're going to continue just in the same way, joining the way that we did, pretending like we haven't stopped at all. So you have to find that corner stitch, grab your loop, grab the corner corresponding on the opposite, and keep going. Okay, so then I'm going to make like an X and go under here. And my goal here is to pick up the same 2 loops that I already sewed together on the first and the second ones, and just follow that line again. So I'm following this, and I'm going to come across to this same one here and redo what I did, doubling up on it in order to add a little bit more of a secure join. And like I said, when I come back to do my horizontal ones, I will go over that. So if you wanted to keep crisscrossing and make more, you could. I don't think it's necessary. You'll just add more bulk to it. Okay, so then you just keep going up and over, 1 loop here, 1 loop across. When I have the really long yarn to pull through, I will make this piece that comes out of my needle longer, so I have less to pull through, as long as that tail is not getting caught in the stitch as you move forward. Now, if you have too many or not enough stitches on your squares, you can definitely grab 2 from one side and sew it to 1 on the other. And to do that, we're going over, so we go grab 1 here, and we need to grab 2 there. So grab 1 loop. So I'm going to grab the first loop and go across and grab the corresponding loop, and then twist my needle behind the second stitch to grab that loop as well, coming up through the center like normal. Go up and over. I can repeat it again if necessary, one after another. Now, I have intentionally made this smaller so I can show you this technique. You obviously would make sure that this was a little bit bigger so you didn't have such an obvious mismatch join here. So let's see, we're getting close. So we'll go ahead and put a regular one here. But you see that it's like an invisible join, invisible to the eye, even with the darker contrasting yarn. Oops, go up and over like that. The same way you would is the key, so that it keeps the slant the same direction. Okay. 1 here, 1 here. Okay, so now if I want to grab 2 on this one, I go in 1, up and over, in the second, and go into the 1 across. There we go. Okay, so that is your first vertical join. Now, obviously, if you're making a full-size blanket, you're going to have more and more sets of squares to do. You just keep going up in your set until you're done with that, and then you're going to cut at least a 6-inch tail to be able to securely weave that in. And now I'm going to show you horizontally how to do that. Okay, so on my horizontal seam, I would like my whip stitch to slant the same way, where it looks like a forward slant. So I am going to start left to right when sewing horizontally. As a crocheter, we start right to left, so you maybe want to do it that way or start that way. That's also fine. Your slants will go the opposite way, and maybe you like that for your look, that's fine. Just letting you know there's a difference, and you want to be probably consistent, at least with all your horizontal lines. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and show you the way I did it, which was from left to right, so that my my whip stitches slant the same direction as my vertical ones. Okay, so here we're joining two ends that have the slip stitches to end the square, so I'm going to ignore those for now. If you already weaved yours in, then you won't have that problem. So on my two end stitches, I'm going to come up from the bottom under the inside loop or the front loop that's closest to me, and then on the inside loop or the back loop that's furthest from me on the square below. Okay, we're doing our locking stitch here, so we're going back around under the same loops to secure that one, and then we're going to go up and over under the inside loop, across to pick up the corresponding loop, and pull that through. Then we'll keep repeating that across. Remember, when we get to the joins, we're going to try to make this look nice. We used the vertical sewing to make sure that they were secured together. We will also use these stitches to secure the join together, but we'll be a little more concerned with how the slant looks and how it is working on top. So it looks like I'm going to have uneven stitches again, which is fine. Okay, so we're going to need to join two stitches to one on this seam as well. So we're going to join this one and this one to one across. So I'm going to skip that one, grab the first loop, or the second one, the furthest from the yarn, working yarn, and then go back and grab the second loop, and then grab the one across to join the two. Proceed like normal for a few stitches. I try to spread those joins out if I can, but as you saw there, it doesn't really matter too much. And then one more. Okay, then we're going to put 2 to 1 again. So go skip one and go to the further one. Yarn over back with the needle. There we go. Okay, and now we have stitch for those last few. Okay, so as we cross our intersection here, the important thing is that we keep the angle of our line the same. So we're going to try to ignore that join as best we can while also making it look good. And to do that, we just have to keep going up and over, grab one yarn strand, one square up, one square down, going over. It's following the same line as these. It's a little bigger because it's coming from that way. That's okay. Now we're going to grab the first identifiable stitch there and the next one there. We're going to actually go through that one and this slip stitch, which I'm going to make a little bigger. Okay, because I'm going to sew this down and use it if I need to. Again, when you're sewing, all this will be the same color. So any of this multiple lines you see will be a lot less visible in the white on white. So you can join as far up on the edge of the square as you want to. You're going to go around and make a border on your blanket likely, so that will help straighten all that out. But I'm going to go ahead and do one more loop stitch each there so they come all the way together and there's not such a hump. Okay, so that is how you can make a great looking whip stitch join for your squares, and you don't even have to have the same stitch count. So you can join up squares of different stitch patterns easily and beautifully, and it even looks great in the contrasting colors as well. You'll have to weave in these ends very securely. Okay, so if you're doing a border, you're going to want to go around probably one more time in the same color as your single crochet border and your join, just to give that a nice final cohesive edge in the same color, and then change to whatever color or border you're doing. Okay, so I hope you found this helpful. If you have any questions, please let me know.